Hi everyone, Gabe here from GBR Music. Thank you very much for checking out this video and welcome to From Piano to Full Orchestra episode 2. Today I'd like to show you how to get from this to this. So pretty much I'd like to show you how to go from a piano chord progression with a simple melody on top to a fully orchestrated segment in a few easy steps. But before I go any further, if you like this content, if you like this channel, and if you'd like to support this guy, please subscribe now to the channel. Every subscriber counts and I really appreciate your support. So thanks in advance. As always with these tutorials, you'll find in the video description below a download link to the Logic Pro 10 projects, and that contains all the audio stems exported from my libraries so that you can solo each of them and see how they're all stacked and how they all work together. Also contained is a MIDI orchestral template with the MIDI part I recorded if you guys want to take a look at that and replace it with your own libraries so you can play with it as much as you want. Before I dive into the project, I just want to let you all know that I'm not using Logic Pro 10 stock instruments. I'm using third-party orchestral sample libraries that are now showing up somewhere around my face over here so you can see what I'm using. If you're not using those specific libraries, no problem. You can use either the stock instruments you have or you can use the libraries you own and just replace the parts with your own instruments. If you do not own any orchestral libraries, I highly recommend you check out the link at the end screen of this video that will lead you to a free Spitfire Audio orchestral sample library. It's a light version of the BBC Symphonic Orchestra library they recently released. But if you use the stock orchestral instrument of either Logic or whichever DAW you might be using, this will be a really nice upgrade for you. Okay, enough talking. I'm not going to keep you all waiting any longer. Let's dive right into it. Okay, so here we are in Logic Pro 10 in the arrangement window, and as you can see we have the piano part on the left side of the screen, the full arrangement on the right side. And before we dive into it and deconstruct it, let's just listen to the piano again and see what this little piano chord progression and melody are made of. So we are in C minor, the meter is 6/8, and this is how this sounds like. So C minor, with this little motive going up the scale, going to A flat major, then C minor again, going through the same sequence to develop the melody a little bit, A flat major, going to the 4, F minor, and finally resolving on the 5, G major. Okay, so as you can hear, it is very simple stuff, nothing too crazy. So now that we did that, let's take a look a little bit at the orchestral arrangement. The way this arrangement works is that it's using two rhythmic ostinatos that are working with and against each other to create the orchestral effect. If you don't know what an ostinato is, it is a rhythmic pattern It can be rhythmic and melodic at the same time, that repeats itself throughout a musical piece. So this arrangement is pretty much all based on the two simple rhythmic ostinatos that are now showing at the bottom of your screen. Okay, so let's get into the meat of this thing. As you can see, the arrangement is constituted of about 7 different sections. So there's the melody played by a hybrid synth electric guitar at the top. Then we have the string section, woodwinds, horns, we have a choir, then I have a little bit of synth pads, and I added a synth bass also to kind of reinforce the bass in the final mix. And then we have the rhythm section with the epic drum, a snare pattern that I've edited a little bit. I'll show you how to do that. Some hard beats to give a little more depth to the hits, a little more lows, and finally a little very mild effect section with some string rises to give a little more drama to the ending. So I've divided the two ostinatos amongst the instrument of the orchestra, and the string section plays one of them, the whole string section plays it unison, just spread over 5 octaves. So we're going to see how this works. And we're going to start with the foundation, the basses. So here we go. Here's our bass part right here. And here is our rhythm ostinato, repeated throughout the whole piece. And what's going on here, as you can see, is that they are playing the roots of each chord, C, A flat, and that's going to happen with all the chords, so C, A flat, F, and G, throughout the whole piece. And the whole string section is going to play the same thing in unison, just spread over 5 octaves. Let's hear it. So we have our bass part. Let me now show you how we're going to create our cellos. So we're going to select everything, and using the Alt key, we're just going to duplicate this an octave higher, and here we go. Sounds bigger already. Okay, so now we're gonna add the violin 1, 2, and the violas. Let me unmute. So here's the same part the basses and cello are playing an octave higher again, so let me play that. Okay, and now we're gonna same thing, select it, Alt key, up, and here are our violin 2s, and now same thing, violin 1s. And now let's play the whole string section together, and it's gonna sound already much bigger. Okay, so that's starting to sound like a pretty solid string section. So now we're gonna add the second ostinato to see how it works with the first one and how it creates the orchestral effect. So I gave it to the high woodwinds, and I don't know if you remember the little piano melody from the beginning. Okay, so that's exactly what the high woodwinds are going to be playing, except that instead of playing it monodically, we're going to keep the C as a pedal to give it a little harmony. So this is how it's going to sound. So I know it sounds a little thin right now, but as we build that, the two parts together, it's going to start sounding bigger and bigger and bigger. And now that I've showed you those two things, you'll see that from now on, we're going to just be replicating a lot of those just to build up the arrangement. And this is all we're going to do. So let's see how those sound together, the string and the high woodwind, and see how those two ostinatos work together. Okay, so they sound a little shy right now, but we're getting there. We're starting to hear the actual arrangement. So under the high woodwinds, to give a little softness to everything, to tie everything together, I have the low woodwinds play some pads. So it's just pretty much some basic 3-note chord, the same chords that the progression are based on, and this is how it sounds like. So now we're really starting to hear the orchestra. Let's get to the really fun stuff. Let's hear the French horns. So the French horn part is pretty much an exact duplicate of the high woodwind part, except there's a little more meat to it, because I added some of the tries we're using under, you know, the top line, the top melody. So let's listen to how it sounds on its own, and then I'll add the rest of the arrangement so that you can hear it. So this is going to add a lot of punch to the whole arrangement. Let's not put the rest on. So under this first French horn part, we have the same exact horn part, duplicated, but played by a different orchestral library. In this case, I'm using the French horn patch from Metropolis Arc 1, which sounds also great. And this little technique here, I think, enables you to get a better horn sound, because you're layering two libraries, blending two libraries together, and it creates this little unique, you know, characteristic to it that each of them separated don't have, but together now they sound like something new. So under this first layer of horns, I have another layer with bass trombones and tubas, and they play what the string section play at the same octave the cello and bass plays them. So let me add this. You'll see it will sound familiar. So I like using bass trombones and tubas at the same time, because bass trombones really add this nice brassy sound, and the tubas really add this nice bass quality to the sound. If I put just the bass trombone, it's going to sound a little too brassy. If I put only the tubas, it's going to sound a little too bassy. But put them together, and it creates the perfect blend. Okay, so now we can hear the whole brass section play the arrangement, and then I'll add the rest of the orchestra we've already heard. Our orchestra is starting to emerge now. Okay, so now let's add the vocals, let's add the choir. So I'm using the amazing Metropolis Arc 1 choir. It's absolutely great. It has, like, it simulates syllables, it sounds very real. And this part is once again a duplicate of something another instrument is already playing in the orchestra somewhere. In this particular case, the woodwinds high and the French horns. Women and Men, they're programmed over 2 tracks because they're 2 different instruments in the plugin. But they play the same exact thing, just an octave lower for the men. So I'm gonna add the women. I'm gonna just solo them for a second so that you can hear the quality of this choir because it's really nice. And now the men. I mean, this instrument sounds so good. Okay, so now let's just listen to that with the rest of the orchestra. And it adds so much flavor to it, so much, you know, body to the arrangement to have the voices. Here we go. Okay, so now I'm gonna skip the synth for now and I'm just gonna focus on the rhythm section for a little bit. So for this part I'm using Damage, which is a native instrument plugin which is really great for creating rhythmic atmospheres. So here is what it sounds like on its own. So the great thing about Damage is that you can actually, you know, create your own little rhythmic patterns by playing around with what they offer. So that's what I did here. I used 3 different patterns and created one that's kind of like unique. So then on top of that, we have a snare sample to give a little more punch to all of this. Some syncopation in the rhythm. It already sounds like a bigger percussion ensemble. So for that snare, I used this little snare sample, snare loop I found somewhere. Here's how it sounds. But I don't like this little roll at the end, so what I want to do is just edit it, and I want to cut it. For example, here, bring this at the end of the train, and what I really want the snare to do is to play those last 3 16th notes and accentuate it. So I'm going to cut it here, up, duplicate, up. So let's listen to it real quick. Now I have those last 3 16th notes accentuated just the way I want them. So under this we have another layer. This is Native Instruments Action Strike. I'm using the Dark CD ensemble, and it's just giving a 6/8 pattern that just sits nicely under the whole thing. It's probably not mandatory, but it does add another layer of syncopation that I think really helps the piece and which I like. So, and under all this, I have another instrument called Heartbeats by also Native Instruments, and it's part of Action Strikes. Sounds a little bit like this. It's just to add a little low end to the whole rhythm section in it. Okay, and just to finish this, we have some rolls to, you know, ramp us into the piece with quick volume automations to simulate, you know, like a crescendo. And we have an impact sound on the first beat to just like make it super heavy and epic, and that's how it sounds all together. So that's it. And so those are just string rises that I got from another Native Instrument plugin called Rise and Hits. I mean, Native Instrument has a lot of really great instrument for cinematic composition. So this is how the interface looks like. This one is called Chaos Stairs, one of my personal favorites. And this one is Deep Orchestra. So it just, you know, adds a little trailer, cinematic drama effect to the whole piece. Let's listen to it. Okay, let me just talk quickly about the synth section. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because it's just to add a little texture and glue to the whole piece and create kind of like a little bit more magic. Let's talk about the synth bass. First, it's a patch by Trillion that mimics the ostinato played by the bass and cellos and the tuba and bass bone sections. So I'm just using this to reinforce the bass and also create maybe a little more modern of a sound. And the synth pad mimics what the woodwinds, the low woodwinds were playing. We're playing those, remember those chords? The synth pads are doing the same thing. And this creates this kind of nice atmosphere and glue that kind of ties the whole room together in the word of the dude. So it makes the sound a little more modern too, and it creates a nice atmosphere under the piece. Okay, well, let's add the melody and listen to it, and we'll be done for this episode of From Piano to Full Orchestra. And there you have it, your full orchestral arrangement slash sci-fi electro-orchestral piece. So I really hope you enjoyed it, and here we go. Okay everyone, thank you very much for your attention, I really appreciate it, and for watching this video. If you'd like to listen to the long version of this piece, you can do it right here by clicking on the link that's appearing on the screen now. And once again, if you are using your DAW stock orchestral instrument, right in the next 30 seconds, there's going to be in the end screen a video that shows you how and where to get the light version of Spitfire Audio's BBC Symphonic Orchestra called Symphonic Orchestra Discover very easily and for free. And I really recommend for you to do it if you're working with your stock instrument, because it's going to be a tremendous upgrade sound-wise for you. So that's it. Have fun, people, make music, and I'll see you next time. Stay safe out there.